Welcome to episode 8 of the NTS podcast. Um, I can't believe it's been 8 episodes. It's kind of crazy. And I'm just grateful that you've all chosen to share your stories and that I get to be a voice for so many people who are navigating really major issues when it comes to finding reasons to stay and navigating mental health disorders, just the way I do every single day. I also feel less alone as I do this, and for me, I'm just grateful that I have a team that supports me and I get to show up every day, every week at least, just speaking to other people's lived experiences. So, thank you all for your continued vulnerability and for choosing to share your stories in my DMs. So, we'll start with the first DM, and this is how it goes. Thank you for sharing your story. Being in America right now, after losing everything that mattered to me since 2019, except for a few clothes and my cat, I only wish I could find a humane way to exit. As I have tried at 15 from severe bullying to end my life, which ironically circled back around to me the summer of 2019 after losing two uncles, three parents, two cats, and a dog from December 2017 to May 2019. Started to heal a bit then COVID happened, losing my home of 27 years, another cat and dog. Wow. Floating since 2022, went through more trauma from September to 2024 to now. Should have never listened to so-called friends and moved back to Florida in November 2024. I've been following your main page since 2022 when you were visiting friends, eating meals, and healing your childhood trauma was a turning point for me. Something so many of us have experienced, and the current energy in the States with our so called leaders that should all be reprimanded by their vileness. They have also done everything to eliminate those of us whom have fought against all of the atrocities that so many of us have been vocal about, whilst doing nothing for the most vulnerable in our society. Thank you for sharing your story. It has put a smile on on my face several times, sharing meals with families and the times you found love. All souls matter on this planet. My heart breaks for those of us that deserve so much more in life, truly fighting not to find a way to leave. Hugs and love to you. Thank you for sharing your friend's story. I am so very sorry that they have decided to leave. I truly believe that if there is anything after we leave here, the light will accept those of us with good souls that are tired. Okay, that's a very heavy one. I mean, I'm not an expert, but it feels like this person has CPTSD for sure. What it must be like to be re-traumatized this way for me, it's something that I can relate to, but there's a word that comes a lot in so many DMs, and this is a word that I said to myself the first time I shared my decision to pursue euthanasia at the end of 2024. The word that keeps coming up for me is tired. Everyone keeps saying they're tired. And I don't know, I feel like we were not meant to live in a world where we receive and consume this much terror simultaneously. You know, like I think one of the worst inventions of social media is the doom scroll. You know, um, my nervous system, our collective nervous systems are constantly being shot at from several angles, and that alone, that alone, aside from any neurological mental disorder, should be enough to put anyone over the edge. So I don't know. I feel as if people shouldn't be so hard on themselves because we live in quite unprecedented times. Um, I I do feel like it sounds like this person has lost everything and has had to like encounter loss time and time and time and time again. And I can only imagine how that must feel, you know? It must feel utterly godless and sort of this sense of helplessness when it comes to like what it means to lose someone. But here's the thing I learned. One of my favorite quotes by Ram Dass is that we are all walking each other home. And it's a quote I've said many times because it's kind of true. If you think about life, we're losing each other every day. That's what life is. Um, and I'm not saying that to discredit anyone else's grief. Grief is a very strange animal. It's relentless, it's unpredictable, it shows up in ways that you never expected it to show up. Sometimes it's laughing at the wrong moments, sometimes it's crying at the right ones. And you can't work it away, you know? Um, it reminds me of this song by Solange Knowles, when she sings Cranes in the Sky. Um, sh- I think that there's a lyric where she goes, I try to keep myself busy. I run around in circles, think I made myself dizzy. And she's like, I think you can't really work away grief. It will just wait for you to finish. And that's the truth, you know? Um, I think this person is very brave to still be around after losing all that you have lost is nothing short of a miracle. Um, and I do believe in small miracles, and you are definitely one of them. I Yeah, there are very few times when DMs leave me speechless, but that was one of them. Um, I'm so grateful that you mentioned that the last summer project and watching me break bread with strangers. That's a tongue twister. Break bread with strangers. Um, I'm so grateful that you felt that healed you in a way, or that put a smile on your face. Um, Sometimes my Instagram can be a very hard place to visit, and I'm glad that there are moments where it does bring joy. I have no advice for you other than no, I don't because I it would be I've had lots of loss in my life, a lot of loss in my life, but this is one of the rare cases where I can say that you have definitely experienced it at a far greater level than I think I can compare. So all I can do is leave you with love and hope that my existence in whatever flawed capacity continues to bring you some relief and to remind you that you aren't alone. So yeah, let's go look at the next GM. Um, okay, so next DM is this was sent to me on 20th January. I'm not sure if you will see this, but I am a student in New York. Last semester, I came back to school hopeful that the progress I made on my mental health was enough. The suicidal ideation had stopped, but when I got back to New York, I had a full mental breakdown. I never felt so helpless in my life. I returned to San Diego, my hometown, to receive more help, which I tried. I got a new therapist, a psychiatrist, and was getting more help than I ever had. I eventually quit my medication and stayed off it without telling anyone. Wow. I then returned back to New York just a couple days ago, again, hopeful that I had enough, that I'd done enough. I ended up spiraling in my apartment, SHing, and planning out how I was going to end my life. Ah, okay. I am now returning again to San Diego to go into an inpatient program, and I am scared for my life. I have never done anything like this, and I am terrified. I struggle with so much, but the worst is the self-hatred. Um, oh, sorry. And all I can think about is how much of a burden I am to my family, girlfriend, and friends. I struggle deeply with guidance in my situation. I am so incredibly lost. I am so tired of it. I love and appreciate everything you have done with your platform. It is immensely comforting to me. Oh. You know, I'll be honest, sometimes I read all these DMs and I sometimes, think about life as a phenomenon. Like the thing we call life. Sure, there are there are spikes and moments of joy and reprieve, but that comes in the midst of so much crap, that people have to carry. you know, and then you ask yourself, is life as a phenomenon worth it? Because the hardest part about this is somebody who is clearly trying their best to keep going. Sometimes I get so angry when I would open up about my struggles on social media. I would see people telling me things like, take your medication in the comment sections, or stay on drugs in the comment section, or why are you opening up on social media? See a mental health professional, see a therapist, or you need Jesus. And the reason why this makes me so angry is because this is an example of somebody who is like clearly doing everything they can. They've seen a psychologist, they've seen a therapist, they have tried drugs, they've gone off drugs, they've tried everything they're supposed to do, and they're still struggling. And it breaks my heart because there's still so much that the average person doesn't understand about what somebody like this is going through. People are ridiculed all the time for opening up online when they feel like they have nowhere else to turn to. And this is evidence. I'm glad that they're going to an inpatient program. I've had dinner at Last Suppers with people who have kids, or siblings who have tried inpatient programs, um, which are very similar. In America, it's very similar to being institutionalized, but it's of your own volition, I think. And I'm proud of this person because they're clearly doing everything in their power. I don't even have any advice for them because it's there. They've tried everything and they feel overwhelmingly helpless because they have a brain that hasn't allowed them to enjoy being alive. They have a brain that keeps pushing them over the edge. And that's why sometimes I wish people started seeing mental health disorders as terminal sometimes, because sometimes, especially when you get to a point where people realize that they're treatment resistant, sometimes there's nothing you can do. And that's why I I'm very grateful for mental health resources and that people get access to that. But we need more people to speak up for people who don't have any solutions, who can't read a letter and get better, who can't take drugs or medication and get better. We need more voices for people that don't have any other solutions. And I know, it's radical to imagine that people have no other choice but to die peacefully. We think of euthanasia as defeatist, as people giving up, as, you know, but sometimes people just have no other choice. And this person's story is evidence of that. And yes, I hope the inpatient program works for them. But what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't? You know? And the reason why I feel so passionately about this is because, as somebody who has been several times in and out of moments of suicidal ideation, as somebody who has attempted several times in my life, sometimes you don't want to hear someone tell you that everything will just get better. It's the most patronizing, exhausting thing to hear, you know? Especially when there isn't any radical evidence of that in your life. You don't want to hear that. You don't want to read like a cat poster or a motivational speech. You don't. Sometimes you want someone to sit with you in your pain and acknowledge it for what it is. You know? You want someone to like look at you and look into your eyes and understand what that impossible feeling is like. You know? So yeah, I wish this person the best. I do, and I have nothing to tell them other than good luck, because they are doing everything they need to do. Um, Sorry if I got a bit passionate there. It's just I feel I I feel like I want to be a voice for people who just don't feel represented. You know, who aren't fixed or don't feel like they're fixed. Anyway, let me read the last DM. This was sent on the 6th of January. Um, and it goes like this. I don't quite know how to put this into words. Alas, for the 9th of... I had planned for the 9th of 13th of December to be my last. I survived. I still hold a great sense of ambivalence towards this, and life still feels precarious. Um, but through your story, I have been provided with some sense of hope. Wow. One I have not previously experienced. Thank you for your strength. Thank you for allowing yourself to be vulnerable and authentic. These are two of the things I value most in life. I hope that one day soon, I am able to live authentically and vulnerably. I want to note that the word vulnerability can be multifaceted. I myself have a complex relationship with it. Very profound. When met with vulnerability, I feel incredibly grateful. But to express it myself feels unsafe. I want to acknowledge that and that others may have the same experience. As someone who once aspired to be a writer, I apologize for the incompetence I show in my inability to write. Oh, don't worry, that's very cute. Um, Please never apologize for writing to me or how you write. As long as it comes from a very real place, it's fine. I hate my writing sometimes. So, in fact, more times than I like to admit. Um, I was really touched by what you said about vulnerability. Um, the sense that you, the sense that you value vulnerability in others, but find it hard to access that in yourself is so relatable. It really is. And maybe this is what I'll tell you. Also, more importantly, I'm so glad that you didn't go through with your attempt on the 13th of December, and that it didn't work out, and that you're still here. I'm also very grateful that my page of all things has given you hope. Um, it's always a huge thing when anyone says that to me because it makes me feel like I'm doing something right. When I often don't feel like that, stammering aside. But yeah, thank you for saying that. Um, one of my favorite creative directors, Nadia Cohen, she has a T-shirt, um, and on the T-shirt it's written, "No one is really thinking about you." Um, I think she said, I think in an interview, that those were her brother's first words to her when she was starting high school. And if you want to know how I access my vulnerability, that's how I do it. And this might sound counterintuitive, but hear me out. I am completely reconciled with my own unimportance. Like, I am deeply entrenched in this reality that I am not important. So it doesn't matter what I do, and that no one is really thinking about me. People are thinking about themselves. You know? That's how I'm able to be so honest on social media. I, I, I accept this, and I believe that. That what I do is largely inconsequential to someone's breakfast, or someone's tax returns, or someone's own insecurities about who they are. What I do notice is that people confuse people's. What I do notice is that people confuse other people's projection for their perception of who they are. So if somebody says something about you, there's a high chance, 9 times out of 10, that it's more a projection of how they see themselves. And that you are somewhere in the equation in service of that. But very rarely do I feel as if anyone is really thinking about me in a very like deep, meaningful way because let's face it, we're all kind of full of ourselves. Not full of ourselves as in like from a point of vanity, but we all have so much shit we have to deal with within ourselves and within the world that yeah, you might talk about somebody's scandal for like 15 minutes, and then you move on to your own like obligations as a human being in life. People don't really think about you as much as you think they do, and I think that has made me such like a far more grounded person in knowing that I am just allowed to exist as myself. And at the end of the day, that is valid. Let other people figure out their stuff and their projections. That has nothing to do with me, you know? So that's how I access my authenticity every day. I just know that I'm not important and nothing really matters, which is a blessing, honestly. Um, and I hope that you are hopefully seeing a therapist or a psychologist. I hope that you're finding a way to like, you know, be kinder to yourself as well. Um, and I think there's something about, I don't know, I think something that I've learned to appreciate more is knowing that sometimes there's nothing wrong with not knowing what you're doing. Um, I think the phenomenon of knowing what you're doing is highly overrated. And I don't think that we exist on this planet to be in the constant figure-outism of our lives. That's not the state of being that we're supposed to be in constantly, you know? Sometimes sometimes it is just what it is, and you create your life as you go, you know? I if you told me if you told me a year ago that I would be a West African living in Poland, um, enjoying a place called Wrocław, and I would be one of the biggest online advocates for what's happening in Iran, I would have been like, "What are you talking about? And who is that person?" Honestly speaking, like there's some, if you told me that I would have found love again after what I've been through, I'm like, unlikely. But I think sometimes I've learned that you need to allow life to surprise you, and I find that as we become more adults, we don't really expect anything from life. Like, granted, the world owes you nothing, yada yada yada. That's fine, and that's a healthy way to look at the world. But at the same time, sometimes allow life to surprise you. You know, escape the matrix. Like you um, challenge yourself to do the most unthinkable, counterintuitive thing you could imagine. Even if it's changing the hand you brush your teeth with, change something. You have no idea how that will pan out. So yeah, yeah. Um, so sending you lots of love, and as always, please know that my DMs remain open. And thank you for watching this episode. So, for the show and tell part of our podcast, I have one of my favorite writers in life, who has sadly passed, Joan Didion. Um, I really want to recommend The Year of Magical Thinking. I wasn't surprised when I found out this was a bestseller, and it made more sense to me when I finally um, watched her documentary on Netflix, um, which is The Center Will Not Hold. She talks about loss and grief a lot in a way that's so human, and because it's I think one of the best books about grief that isn't innately religious. And I think Joan's writing is so discerning, lyrical, but also the perfect amount of witty. I love her witticisms, even when talking about some of the most serious things. And the way she forms her sentences, Joan's sentences punch you, but it's like a velvet punch, you know? And apart from the White Album, this is another one of my favorite books by her. So I'd really encourage you to give it a chance and give it a read. Till next time.